How not to educate your children. Don't limit a child to your own learning. It's a paradoxical that many educators and parents still differentiate between a time for learning and a time to play without seeing the vital connection between them. I think the biggest difference is that I've noticed Western parents seem much more concerned about their children's sights, their self-esteem, whereas tough immigrant parents assume strength rather than fragility in their children and therefore behave completely differently. Knowledge which is acquired under compulsion has no hold on the mind. Therefore, do not use compulsion, but let early education be a sort of amusement. You will then be better able to discover their child's natural talent. The parents who have to learn that the child should not be insulated, humiliated, condemned if you want to help him, love him, or appreciate what is good in him rather than emphasizing what is bad, talks about his goodness, let the whole neighborhood know how nice and beautiful the boy is. You may be able to shift his energy from the bad side to the good side, from the dark side to the lighted side, because you will make him aware that this is the way to get respect, this is the way to be honored, and you will prevent him from doing anything that makes him fall down in people's eyes. I was raised by extremely strict but also extremely loving Chinese immigrant parents, and I had the most wonderful childhood. I remember laughing constantly with my parents. My dad is a real character and very funny. I certainly did wish they allowed me to do more things. Parenting is the hardest thing I have ever done. I try to find the balance between the strict traditional Chinese way I was raised, which I think I can be too harsh, and what I see as a tendency in the West is to be permissive and indulgent. If I could do it all again, I would, with some adjustments. Parents appreciate the child who agrees, and they condemn the one who disagrees. As a non-parent, I stand in awe of parents. That best academy, a mother's knee. One father is more than 100 schoolmasters. Of course, parents are the most important people in the child's life. You are the bow from which your children are living arrows are sent forth. When I look back, I can't believe how my parents managed, but the clutch is true. We hadn't money, but we were rich in so many other ways. Parents train children, their experience and the vicarious memory children endure their parents with a vicarious immortality. There is no school equal to a decent home and no teacher equal to a virtuous parent. Be kind to your children unless you raise them in the cardboard box without any stimulation or interaction. Then they will probably be just fine. What's parenting? What is home without children? With every word we utter, with every action we take, we know our kids are watching us. Parenting is such a lesson in self-sacrifice. Parenting is not for sissies. You have to sacrifice and grow up. We never know the love of a parent till we become parents ourselves. When you become a parent, it is not all about you anymore. Being a parent is not a reasonable thing. It is a very hard thing. I'm a parent and I know. By now, being a parent, I go home and see my son and I forget about any mistake I ever made on any reason I'm upset. I get home and my son is smiling and he comes running to me. It's just made me grow as an individual and grow as a man. When you become a parent, you look at your parents differently. Look at being a child differently. It's an awakening, a revelation that you have. You know, parenting is so personal and we are all afraid that we didn't quite get it right, and it feels like the stakes are so high. By what? What if we made a mistake? Being a mother has been the greatest teacher and also the most self-sacrificing thing I've ever done. Nothing is so contagious as example. Children are educated by what the grown-up is and not by his talk. If you don't feel safe as a child, you can't learn. I think our job as parents is to give our child the roots to grow and wings to fly. Developing resilience isn't something you do overnight. When you want to teach children to think and begin by treating them seriously when they are little, giving them responsibilities, talking to them candidly, providing privacy and solitude for them and making them readers and thinkers of significant thoughts from the beginning, then if you want to teach them, you think. Teach them to think. Children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them. My coach and my parent both had this relationship to what I was doing, which was allowing me to express myself with chess. And so I could love it. I had a passion for it. I was expressing myself through chess, and I was learning about myself through chess. It is true that my parents were worried because I began to speak relatively late, so much so that they consulted a doctor. I can't say how old I was then, certainly not less than 3 Albert Einstein. I do believe that when your child does poorly on a test, your first step should not necessarily be to attack the teacher or the school's curriculum. It should be to look at the idea that maybe the child did work hard enough. But in fact, there is nothing that can bring you closer to a fearlessness about everything else in the world than being a parent. Because everybody fears, like not being approved of or paled by comparison to the fears that you have about the children. So deep. I learned from my parents the idea that if you are devoted enough and you want to study something enough, you can really teach yourself anything. The most certain kids are that someone's got their back, the more confident and autonomous they can be. To educate the intelligence is to expand the horizon of its wants and desires. Education begins at home, and I applaud the parents who recognize that they, not someone else, must take responsibility to assure that the children are well educated. I've learned that the best classroom in the world is at the feet of the elderly person. Education is the process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits. Education is not a feeling of a pain, but the lightning of a fire. Education is the art of making man ethical. Education is the power to think clearly, the power to act well in the world's work, and the power to appreciate life. Education is not the piling of the learning, information, data, facts, skills, and abilities. That's the training of instruction, but in rather making visible what is hidden as a seed. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. Education is our power passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. Education is the only solution. Education first. Education is light. Ignorance is darkness. Education is helping the child realize his potentialities. Education is simply the soul of the society as it passes from one generation to another. Education is the transmission of civilization. Education is the progressive discovery of your own ignorance. Education is the mother of leadership. Education is the methodical creation of the habit of thinking. Education is the key to unlock to the golden door of freedom. Education is the leading of human souls to what is best and making what is best out of them. Education is what most receive, many pass on, and few possess. Education is hanging around until you're caught on. Education is a method whereby one requires a higher grade of prejudices. Education is not to reform students or amuse them or make them expert technicians. It is not unsettle their minds, widen their horizons, inflame their intellects, teach them to think straight if possible. Education is a human right with immense power to transform on its foundation rest the cornerstones of freedom, democracy, and sustainable human development. Education is the premise of progress in every society and in every family. Education is the ability to listen to almost anything without losing your temper or self-confidence. Education is of far greater importance than heredity in forming a character. Education is the vaccine for violence. Education is our greatest opportunity to give an invocable gift to the next generation. Education is not a problem. Education is an opportunity. Education is the best solution to fight many other issues as well. Through education, you can fight child labor. Through education, you can fight child trafficking. Through education, you can also fight poverty. Education is the best economic policy there is. Education, that which reveals to the wise and conceals from the stupid the vast limits of your knowledge. Education is a vital human right and plays a key role in human, social, and economic development. Education is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to open children's hearts and minds to the unbelievable wonder of the universe. Getting a job is not the purpose of school. The great aim of education is not knowledge but action. The aim of education is the knowledge, not the facts, but of values. Education's purpose is to replace an empty mind with an open mind. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. The aim of education should be to teach us rather how to think than what to think. Rather to improve our minds so as to enable us to think for ourselves than to load the memory with thoughts or other men. My idea of education is to unsettle the minds of the young and inflame their intellect. The one real object of education is to have a man in the condition of continually asking questions. Education must provide opportunities for self-fulfillment. It can, at best, provide a rich and challenging environment for the individual to explore in his own way. I think school is a place where thinking should be taught. Education should light a fire within to improve us and help our world. Education builds on itself, creating greater capacity to educate others and nurture a culture that values learning. A primary purpose of liberal education is to make one's mind a pleasant place in which to spend one's leisure. If teaching has any purpose, it is to implant through insight and responsibility. Education must lead us from irresponsible opinion to true responsible judgment. It must lead us from chance and arbitrariness to rational clarity and intellectual order. And education is in how much you have committed to memory and how much you know. It's being able to differentiate between what you know and what you don't. And education which does not cultivate the will is an education that depraves the mind. Real education should educate us not of self into something for finer, into a selflessness which links us with all of humanity. Respect for the fragility and importance of an individual life is still the mark of an educated man. It seems our schools need to find a self-confidence and determination to push ahead with an idea that goes back decades. They need to show a bit of character and resilience. An educated person is one who has learned the information almost always turns out to be at best incomplete and very often false, misleading, fictitious and mendacious. Just dead wrong. The object of education is to prepare the young to educate themselves throughout their lives. Education must enable one to sit and weigh evidence, to discern the true from the false, the real from the unreal, the facts from the fiction. The aim of college education is to teach you to know a good man when you see one. Aha, pretty. When you teach your son, you teach your son's son. Through education, we can gain a broad mind. One, on education, it always teaches us justice. It also teaches us respect. It teaches us how to live together. There are obviously two educations. One should teach us how to make a living and the other how to live. Upon the education of the people of this country, the fate of this country depends. Think about it. Every educated person is not rich, but almost every education person has a job and a way out of poverty. So education is a fundamental solution to poverty. Knowledge in itself is nothing, is the use of it which counts. Make yourself useful like I'm making me useful. Oh my God, I love me. So should you love yourselves. Life is beautiful, beautiful. I love New York City, but I miss Ulhasnagar like anything. Oh my God. I love India, period. I love Narendra Modi. I cannot wait to give him a hug. When would that be? God knows. Let's educate ourselves for now. Without education, you are not going anywhere else in the world. You can't legislate goodwill that comes through education. Education provides us with knowledge about the world. It paves the way for a good career. It helps build character. It leads to enlightenment. It lays the foundation for a strong nation. My experience and my life tell me that education has empowered me. Had I not been educated, who would I have been to express my views? Education gave me that power. Look at Malala. If she had not been in school, she wouldn't have been so powerful. Her education gave her the power to raise her voice. Had she been illiterate, she would not have been able to speak with a cause, with a vision, with persistence. No country can really develop unless its citizens are educated. Without an educated populace, democracy cannot sustain itself. Without education, our world becomes far more narrow, isolated, and uninformed. If someone is going down the wrong road, he doesn't need motivation to speed him up. What he needs is education to turn him around. Intelligence and proper education will give you independence of spirit. Education breeds confidence. Confidence breeds hope. Hope breeds peace. Modest doubt is called the beacon of the wise. Benefits of education. I never learned from a man who agreed with me. In youth we learn, in age we understand. The years teach much which the days never knew. It is easier to build a strong children than to repair a broken man. Wisdom is not a product of schooling but the lifelong attempt to acquire it. When something dies is the greatest teaching. Curiosity is the wick in the candle of learning. If you have knowledge, let others light the candles at it. Without education, we are in a horrible and deadly danger of taking educated and people seriously. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. There is nothing as a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a butterfly. You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find within himself. Some people will never learn anything for this reason because they understand everything too soon. The man who is too old to learn was probably always too old to learn. What sculpture is to a block of marble, education is to the human soul. The task of the modern educator is not to cut down the jungles but to irrigate deserts. Ignoring isn't the same as ignorance. You have to work at it. In the practice of tolerance, one's enemy is the best teacher. The solution of every problem is another problem. Genius without education is like silver in the mine. Tomorrow hopes we have learned something from yesterday. Study the past if you have the divine future. If I don't have wisdom, I can teach you only ignorance. The educated does not share a common body of information but a common state of mind. A man's mind may be likened to a garden which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild, but whether cultivated or neglected it must and will bring forth if no useful seed are put into it. Then an abundance of useless seeds will fall therein and will continue to produce their kind. Sometimes the ignorant are among the most educated. Change is the end result of all true learning. Progress just means bad things happen faster. Teaching is more than imparting knowledge. It is inspiring change. We need to be our own masters and students. There is no master and savior outside of us. We need to change ourselves and learn to observe ourselves. The only person who is educated is the one who has learned how to learn and change. One child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world. You can't be a change maker by reading books. In Kenya, I really saw that education can bring change, can really change our society. Osho does not ask anyone to change in any way. Whatever transformation is a different matter and a different plane altogether. Change requires a horizontal moment. Learning more and getting more experience and gaining knowledge makes one more knowledgeable. Transformation requires a vertical moment. Unlearning and experiencing inner states and drowning into knowing leads to awareness. Wow, 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 wow. Worth repeating, okay? Osho does not ask anyone to change in any way. Whatever transformation is whatsoever, transformation is a different matter and a different plane altogether. Change requires horizontal movement. Learning more and more from experience and gaining knowledge makes one more knowledgeable. Transformation requires vertical movement. Unlearning and experiencing inner states and drowning into knowing leads into awareness. Oh wow, this is so brilliant. Like when my purpose of going to Ulhasnagar or India was that I've been in America for 33 years now, and last 5 years I've been consistently, ever since Narendra Modi, oh my God, I love him so much, and been doing the Waheguru Jaap for him ever since. Let's do the Waheguru Jaap, okay? Then only we can speak further. Waheguru, 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 Yeah, that was 108 times Waheguru Jaap, 18 times 6. It is going through each chakra, the universal energy flowing in the Om form Waheguru name. And so I would say the difference between USA, India, USA, Ulhasnagar, and America, United States of America, is one and only one. Is from day one, I would say what makes America the best in the world, and Ulhasnagar the not so good. And I always loved Ulhasnagar since childhood because I connected to my divinity and godliness and spiritual upliftness and the joy, the enthusiasm, everything came from Ulhasnagar. And when I came to America, I loved the beauty, the air, the everything, the materialism, everything is so beautiful, and I felt very independent and individualistic and exploring and expanding, and I felt like everything is possible and opportunities, and this is great, it's amazingly beautiful. I said, let's connect the two. And then the truth came. In America, we go deeper and deeper and deeper. And in Ulhasnagar, we just keep going. And so I became the point in between, the point. And that's how we want to stay. In the moment, in the point, in the now, in the here, where the change happens, because everything can happen now. We cannot do the Waheguru Jaap yesterday or tomorrow, but in this moment now, here, boom, oneness. Okay, go. Love you. Let's go. All I have learned, I learned from books. I don't think much of a man who's not wiser today than he was yesterday. And by the way, our teachers are underpaid. You can't let your failures define you. You have to let your failures teach you. We have an obligation and a responsibility to investing in our students and our schools. We must make sure that people who have the grace, the desire, and the will, but not the money, can still get the best education possible. Barack Obama, beautiful. See, he really made the history. We want to educate people, we want to listen to folks, we want to hear good ideas from all sources. Change will not come if we wait for some other person, or if we, for some other time, we are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the change that we say. Again, Barack Obama. These quotes are by Presidents Obama, Lincoln, Roosevelt, Truman, Kennedy, Churchill, etc. Okay. If you're walking down the right path and you're willing to keep walking, eventually you'll make progress. A change is brought about because ordinary people do extraordinary things. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the change that we say. Focusing your life solely on making a buck shows a poverty ambition. It asks too little of yourself and it will leave you unfulfilled. The school is the last expenditure upon which America should be willing to economize. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. In reading the lives of great men, I have found that the first victory they won was over themselves. Self-discipline with all of them came first. Let us think of education as a means of developing our greatest abilities, because as each of us, there is a private hope after dream which fulfilled can be translated into benefits for everyone and greatest strength for our nation. The goal of education is the advancement of knowledge and the dissemination of truth. John F. Kennedy. Our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education. The human mind is our fundamental resource. Liberty without learning is always in peril. Learning without liberty is always in vain. Believe you can and you're halfway there. Theodore Roosevelt. I find that the harder I work, the more luck I seem to have. The man who reads nothing at all is better educated than the man who reads nothing but newspapers. My education was interrupted only by my schooling. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. If you're going through hell, keep going. Greek. If you're not afraid of storms, for I'm learning to sail my ship. The most necessary learning is that which unlearns evil. The investigation of the meaning of the word is the beginning of education. The most useful piece of learning for the uses of life is to unlearn what is untrue. The wise learn many things from their enemies. The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. It is the mark of an educated man to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. The more I want to get something done, the less I call it work. Those who educate children well are more to be honored than who produce them, for these only gave them life, those the art of living well. The foundation of every state is the education of its youth. Education is an ornament for the prosperous, a refuge for the unfortunate. Some wisdom you must learn from the one who's wise. Experience travel, they are the education in themselves. Much learning does not teach understanding. Even a fool learns something once it hits him. A learned man has always riches in himself. All learning has an emotional bent. The direction in which education starts a man will determine his future. The learning and the knowledge that we have is at the most but little compared with what is of much. We are ignorant. Do not train a child to learning by force and harshness, but direct them to it by what amuses their mind, so that they may be better able to discover with accuracy the peculiar bent of the genius of each plateau. Wisdom thoroughly learned will never be forgotten. Educate your children and it won't be necessary to punish the men. Experience is the teacher of all things. It is better to create than to learn. Creating is the sense of life. Only the educated are free to accuse others, for the one's own misfortunes is a sign of a want of education. To accuse oneself shows that one's education has begun. To accuse neither one nor the other shows that one's education is complete. As long as you live, keep learning how to live. The mind unlearns with difficulty what it has long learned. That is never too often repeated, which is never sufficiently learned. You learn to know a pilot in the storm. Fear is not a lasting character of duty. The authority of those who teach is as often obstacle to those who want to learn. Don't peak in high school about school. You should be having more fun in high school, exploring things because you want to explore them, and learning because you love learning, not worrying about competition. Going to school is not only learning about different subjects. It teaches you communication. It teaches you how to live a life. It teaches you about history. It teaches you about how science is working. It is unfortunate that sometimes in school there is a need to have things quantified and granted. In school, we learn that mistakes are bad and that we are punished for making them. Yet, if we look at the way humans are designed to learn, we learn by making mistakes. We learn by walk by falling down. If we never fall down, we would never walk. Things changed in the 4th grade, though. One of the sins in my life, in this woman named Imogen Hill, who was a 4th grade teacher who taught us advanced class. She got hip to my whole situation in about a month and kindled a passion in me for learning things. I learned more that year than I think I learned in any year of my life. The teacher that made a difference to me was my secretarial training teacher in New York City, and I would always be saying my dear, my dear, my dear for everything. One day she saw me on this road and said, "You will amount to nothing until my dear is dead." I was so hurt. I ran away. She came running behind me and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I only want you to realize and see that there is a genius within you that will not come out until you let go of dear. my dear, out of your mind and reach out to the genius within, the genius that each of us have, but we always are looking without and not deep within. Deep within is the genius. Knowledge in itself is nothing, it's the use of it which counts. The knowledge that we see on the outside in the books is only possible because it has touched the genius within. If we did not have this insight, then the sight would be of no use. Insight can only make the best of sight. Sight in itself is nothing without insight. When we go in with that sight, that will come together with our genius, with our higher power, with the godliness, with our enthusiasm, with our intuitions, intellect. Makes sense, absolute sense, only and only then. So let's do it. Love you all.